Hey guys, thanks for coming back and joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. Glad to have you back. Today's episode, we're revisiting the conversation around grocery pricing. As we've talked about previously, I've been in the grocery industry myself for 30 plus years. I've done about every job you could think of in a grocery store, and then I worked for the largest wholesaler in the country for about 15 years. And so, like, I started at the end of a check stand bagging groceries and grabbing carts out of the parking lot. I've counted bottles. I've cleaned the bakery. I've wrapped meat. I've helped people in the deli. I've decorated cakes in the bakery. I've been a checker. I've stocked frozen foods. You name it, I've done it. It's an industry I know well, and it became a hot topic in the presidential election when Democrat candidate Vice President Harris came out with her statement about going after companies that are price gouging and referenced grocery pricing when she did it. So, this is a case of someone clearly not knowing what they're talking about. And put your politics aside for a second. Um, she doesn't know a thing about the grocery industry because anyone that knows anything about the grocery industry knows that it's nearly impossible to price gouge, even if you wanted to price gouge in the grocery industry, because it is a super, super competitive business. Just think about wherever you live. How many options do you have to buy groceries at? Hell, you can go buy candy or charcoal at Home Depot or toilet paper or cleaning supplies. There are options everywhere. Office supply companies sell soda and candy and cleaning supplies and bath tissue and paper towels. Like, it's literally everywhere that you can buy the products you buy in a grocery store. So there is so much competition. The market will regulate prices correctly no matter what. It's a tough, competitive business. We're going to go through what we're going to do today is go through the net operating profit percentage of some very large publicly traded grocers to kind of prove my point. You don't have to take my word for it. I'm not asking you to trust me because I work in the business. But there's no doubt prices have gone up substantially over the last 4 or 5 years. So, that led to the accusations of price gouging. I've seen a lot of chatter online about greedy corporations and greedy businesses jacking up their prices to make as much money as they can. So I guess a couple of things related to that. First, profit's not a dirty word. You can make money in a business. In fact, it's the point of a for profit business. If you want to start a 501c3 or some other form of a not for profit business, more power to you. I can tell you that a lot of people that work at not for profit businesses do very, very well for themselves because you don't have to make a profit to pay yourself a really large salary or really large benefits. So you should look into how not for profit companies work because there's an assumption by people that it's just folks doing God's work and really doing well. If you look at the wages that get paid to executives at not for profits, they are large. And there's a lot of things that count as not for profits. Look at all the people that work at universities. A university is not taxed, it's a not for profit. And the endowments. In fact, we'll do an episode on that to show you the endowments of not for profit universities. And if you want to generate some tax revenue, there's one way to do it. Start taxing colleges, start taxing universities on their endowments. We'll do another episode on that. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. But my whole point is that simply because a business is for profit doesn't make it bad. The other thing I would say to the greedy corporations argument is why did the corporations just start being, the grocery companies at least, just start being greedy the last 4 years? So pricing was reasonable and affordable by most people's standards before this latest bout of inflation. But we've seen 20% plus inflation over the last 4 years. If you look at a basket of goods that you purchased in 2019 or 2020, it's now, say it costs $100 back then, it now costs $123, $125. So you've seen 20 plus percent inflation over the last 4 years. Like, that's real. That hurts people. Totally get it. But my point is, if companies could price gouge, why weren't they doing it before then? They weren't greedy in the 80s. They weren't greedy in the 90s. They weren't greedy in the 2000s. It just doesn't follow logic. And again, on our channel, what we talk about a lot is making fact based, logical decisions and trying to gather data and to apply rational left brain thoughts to problems. So, the way to look at the argument I've heard is they've got record profit dollars. Well, if you understand how math works, which I think most people should, there are two parts. I guess first let's just talk about how you calculate a gross profit percentage or a net profit percentage. A gross profit percentage is calculated on your cost of goods sold, your sales minus your cost of goods sold. And that's just the difference between what you sold something for versus what you paid for it. And that gets you to a gross profit. And the reason it's gross profit is you haven't paid for any of the other expenses in your business. For example, I can tell you that the things in our business, I call it below the line. So I call gross profit the line, then all your other expenses, you get to a net profit, and then you subtract things like interest to get to an EBITDA number, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. To get to that number, you basically add back in those EBITDA values to your net operating profit. But the way it works, so you get to a gross profit. Let's say that you bought something. Let's just keep the math simple. You bought it for $10 and you sold it for $7.50. So you got $2.50 left after you've paid for the product but sold it to a customer. Now you've got to pay your rent or your mortgage. If you own the building, it's a mortgage. If you lease the building, it's rent. You got to pay your utilities. And I can tell you from paying them that electric bills and heating bills in grocery stores are large, several thousands of dollars a month to pay for those things. You got to pay your staff. You've got to pay insurance. You've got to pay for transportation. You've got to pay for your benefits for your employees. There's a lot of stuff that comes off after gross profit. So after that's all said and done, after you've paid all of your business expenses, you get to a net profit. So that net profit is a dollar amount. So in the grocery world, that net profit is very see as we kind of go through the examples that we've got here to show that the net profit percentage has not changed much at all over the last 5 or 6 years, even while inflation has been rampant. So the numerator is the top number in a division problem. The denominator is the bottom number. So if the numerator and denominator get larger, then you're going to see more dollars at the bottom line. For sure, there's no doubt about it. But what you have to look at is the percentage, because if the cost of goods goes up and the other expenses in your business go up, you're going to have to raise your prices to cover those. And that's still going to work out to some percentage amount. And if you look at the percentage amounts on the grocers we're going to look at, and these are, again, 3 of the largest publicly traded grocers in the country, that hasn't changed. So we looked at Walmart, we looked at Costco, or we looked at Kroger. And so those are, for those that don't know the grocery business, those are massive. Walmart's the largest grocery company in the country. I think Costco is second at this point, and Kroger is third, if I remember right. Now, there's publicly traded companies like Publix is an ESOP, so it's an employee-owned company. It's not publicly traded. I don't know if they publish financials or not. They may be required to publish financials because of the way ESOPs work. I don't know. But I think all these are larger than the other ones. And the reason I picked these ones is because if anyone was going to be able to price gouge, it would be a huge corporation or a huge company like a Walmart, like a Costco, like a Kroger. But let's say that in our example, we were selling a product at $10, and now we are, and we were paying $7.50 for the product, so we were keeping $2.50. So our margin was 25%. To keep that same 25%, if we had to take the cost up, let's say our cost rose from $7.50 to $9. So they went up $1.50, which is roughly, what is that? About 13%. We would need to take that $10 up to $11.30 to make that math work. So we now sell at $11.30, but we paid $9 for it in our example. So you're going to see more profit dollars on the bottom line, but the percentage isn't going to go up. And that's how grocery companies typically operate. And your job as a grocer is to be really sharp on prices on what we call known value items, KVIs. And those are things like eggs, milk, bread. Those are staple items that people know the price of, and those can make the difference between where they will shop. So if you're out of water on, or if you're out of bounds on pricing on eggs, people will go find a different store because eggs are a cheap protein and people use them to get protein in their diets. Bread, right? So sandwiches and toast and all the other things that we use bread for. Those are staple items that are in almost everybody's pantry, and people know the prices on those items. So you can attract customers by going lower pricing on those items, but you've got to make that money up somewhere because you've still got to pay the bills. And we're talking about companies that make less than 3% profit. So you're lucky if for every dollar that you sell, you keep 3 pennies of that dollar. So it's a crazy competitive business. There's really no way to price gouge. And I think it's really important to stay focused on the facts instead of letting emotional arguments rule the day. And the way to think about it is if you have to stick to percentages because the total dollars are not what's relevant. Because if costs rise faster than sales price, then your margins are going to go down. If costs rise slower than sales price, your margins are going to go up. And if costs rise at the same ratio as your sales price, your margins are going to stay the same. And so you're going to see here, as we go through these numbers, that these companies have not seen a significant change in margin over these years. So, with that said, let's look at the evidence to support the statements that I'm making in this episode. So, I went back and I pulled their financials. This is public information. Any publicly traded company is required under SEC law to publish on a regular basis their financial statements. And so you can go look this up. Just Google it. Google Walmart net operating profit, and you'll be able to see it. Now, again, I want to look at percentage because the dollar amount isn't super relevant. It's actually the percentage. How much of each dollar are they actually keeping? Because every year your costs are going up. When's the last time your taxes went down? When's the last time your electric bill went down? Your water bill, your heating bill? When's the last time your labor costs went down or you took a pay cut at work? It doesn't happen very often. So every year your costs are increasing, which is why sales prices are increasing. So if the companies were gouging and they were able to make more money, it would show in the percentages. And that's just not the case. That's not what the evidence shows. So Walmart's net operating profit percentage in 2018 was 1.31%. In 2019, it was 2.86%. In 2020, it was 2.43%. In 2021, it was 2.41%. In 2022, when there was rampant inflation and supposedly there was gouging going on, it dropped to 1.93. And then in 2023, it came back to a more normal level of 2.41. So in 2019, it was 2.86. In 2023, it was 2.41. And in none of the years after 2019 was Walmart's net operating percentage higher than it was in 2019. In fact, in all 4 years, it was lower than it was in 2019. So please explain to me where there's price gouging going on there. Let's look at Costco. Costco, 2019, 2.26%. In 2020, it was 2.45%. In 2021, it was 2.45%. In 2022, it was 2.61%. In 2023, it was 2.65%. So 2019, it was 2.26. In 2023, it was 2.65. So the argument there is that a 39 basis point rise over a 5-year period is evidence of price gouging. I don't see it. I just don't see it. And again, I'm not asking you to trust me. That's why I'm showing you numbers here that are readily available to the public. to our government officials who are accusing private businesses of price gouging their customers. It just doesn't hold water when you look at it. So, one more. Let's look at Kroger, the third largest, or one of the three largest grocers in the country. 2020, their net operating profit percentage, 1.34%. 2021, 1.92%. 2022, 1.19%. 2023, 1.5%. 2024, 1.43%. So there is no evidence of price gouging. And look, grocery is a volume business. You can't make super high margins in grocery. What you can do is a whole bunch of volume in grocery. So you want to get more customers through the door, more items in baskets, more items through the register because you're not making very much money on the items that you sell. And the whole goal is to increase customer count, increase basket size, increase transaction size so you can make a little bit more on every transaction. That's the goal of the grocery industry. So looking at these three huge, including the largest, by the way, grocers in the United States and looking at their net operating profit percentages, there's zero evidence to support this silly argument that there's price gouging going on in the grocery industry. So I wanted to level set on that. I think it's important to get out there, especially right now when people are making decisions about who to vote for and how to vote. You should vote for whoever you think is going to create the best environment, in my opinion, the best environment for businesses to operate in. And that means, from my perspective, less regulation, less meddling, less government oversight. Because anytime the government creates a program, a business has to spend money to comply with that program. Now, am I saying get rid of laws around selling expired food to customers? No, of course I'm not. Absolutely not. But price gouging to invent a problem because it's politically convenient and you think it'll score you points with your constituency, that's all this was. There is absolutely no price gouging going on in the grocery industry. It sucks that things are more expensive, but I can tell you that our costs at our company have gone up exponentially from where they were in 2019. And so I can tell you firsthand that the reason your prices are higher is because we are being charged more by suppliers. And the suppliers have valid reasons for that too. Transportation has gone up, labor has gone up, energy costs have gone up, ingredient costs have gone up, packaging costs have gone up. All of those things have gone up, which necessitates for a business to stay in business and keep people employed, they have to be able to make money. And if they don't make money, they're going to fold up shop and we're all going to wind up without jobs and it's going to be a tough spot to be in. So, no evidence of price gouging. I can tell you from my 30 plus years in the grocery industry, I've never seen an example of price gouging. I've literally never seen it in 30 plus years. I've worked at multiple companies. I've worked all over the country. I know other people that work all over the country. I can just tell you factually, I can show you evidence here that there is not price gouging going on. So I hope that is helpful. I hope you find it useful. I hope that you factor that into your thought process and your decision-making process when you're thinking about who to vote for. So, and I'm not saying vote for Trump because he didn't talk about price gouging. I'm just saying don't vote for Harris because she's going to solve price gouging, because it doesn't exist in the grocery industry. I can't speak for housing. I can't speak for energy because I'm not in those businesses. I don't know how they operate. I can tell you I know a couple people that own service stations. And they don't make very much money selling gas. At least that's been my experience. Now, the oil companies and the refining companies, I don't work in that industry. I'm not qualified to speak on it. I can just tell you anecdotally, I know a couple people that own service stations and I know what their financials look like. They're not printing money because they're selling gas. They're not making it at the service stations. So the money in the oil and gas industry isn't at the pump. I can tell you that. So anyhow, that's our episode for today, guys. I hope you find it useful. I hope that you take this approach on when you're thinking through things and trying to decide on how you're going to process information. Always look for evidence, always look for facts, always try to apply logic to situations. Now, this happens to be what I'm very close to, and I understand this business very well, so it's easier for me. I wanted to share that information with you guys so that you could factor it into your decision-making process over the next month. So again, guys, don't forget to head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All our podcast episodes are available there. We've got a daily newsletter that you can subscribe to there. And we've got our links to all of our other social media accounts on our website as well. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our content on whatever platform you consume it on. Really appreciate you guys coming back and checking us out. We're looking forward to seeing you next time. Everybody have a great week.